So let's welcome everybody to the 43rd Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum, since I forgot to press record, that little red record button up there. And I'm really glad that I saw it before we got any more into it. So today, what we're going to talk about, Tad and Richard and I are going to talk about guitar wax. It's come up on the forum, and it seems like it's something that before people get a little too much trouble, we might want Mr. Hoover to clear this up for us.
That's flattering. I'll do my best here. So was that a question, or you want to?
Well, that was the question.
Focus on this?
Yeah, that was
okay,
the question. Let's talk about
sure.
that.
Let's roll here.
Yeah, we are.
So, without a preface of who we are and what we do, we're assuming a lot of the listeners know that we're making custom acoustic guitars predominantly, and we're doing whatever it takes to do the best without limits to anything but good taste, right? We'll go as far as it takes to get a guitar really, really right. We're prudent about what our customers spend, but we're not limited by what it takes to make the best. So with that, we run up against a lot of products that we don't manufacture ourselves that we use in our guitars. Let's say strings, tuning machines, cases, and companion products like the wax. And in those cases, we don't settle for what we can get on the market because the market's limited by price targets. We design our idea of the best, and we have that made for us. And the wax is no exception. We use a real traditional nitrocellulose lacquer. It's the best thing for an acoustic guitar. It's made out of the same stuff that the guitar is, cellulose, which is what wood's made out of. And we have a compatibility of resonance. And if that sounds awfully subtle and like a marketing ploy, it's the combination of subtleties that we add together that give us the outcome of excellence. Any one of them is a contributor, but together, that's how we get the best. So with that mouthful, the wax is formulated to be compatible with the nitrocellulose lacquer. It's not going to etch it, solve it, affect it, color it. And that's why we make it ourselves. We've had a supply chain issue here recently, and we couldn't get it for a while. And our company that made it for us is one of the casualties of COVID, and they went out of business. So we have a temporary hiatus while we get another company to do our formulation. But I do have alternatives for you here. And Richard, help me remember that by the time we're done here, I'll give a recommendation. But here's what you're looking for in something for your guitar. First, we love our guitars. We're really motivated to buy toys for our guitars, and we want to do things to make our guitars happy. And we'll spend a lot of money, and sometimes it's questionable, the benefits of what we get. There are, Richard said, maybe 40 waxes out there for guitars, and they're everything from thoughtful compositions that are made for guitars, and there's stuff that you can go to the Pet Boys or O'Reilly's Auto Parts and buy for a fraction of the cost under another brand. So what we want in something for what we're calling a wax for a guitar is protective rather than mildly abrasive. And the difference is protective. This is to keep things from getting on your guitar, wine stains, drool, who knows what, that it will resist getting on the actual finish, and you can wipe it off easily. It also makes the guitar look shiny, and you feel like you've done a good thing for your instrument. So in that regard, I want to think about this. You always don't have access to the formulation of what that wax is, and therefore, you want to get recommendations that you're not getting something with silicone in it. And that is the one thing that I'm going to say is probably the most important statement that I'm going to make is you don't want silicone anywhere near your guitar, and it's in everything. And the reason is that it'll migrate into tiny fissures or cracks and things like that, and will resist any future attempt to try to repair. So if you have cold checks, little cracks from weather or impact or something about your guitar, and you go over it with a wax with silicone in it, that's it for eternity. You won't be able to repair that. Now, maybe somebody's come up with something to bypass that, but that's the knowledge I go by. So don't use an unknown wax. We, of course, don't use silicone in our wax. The other one is when you apply that, any kind of a wax, it's transparent when done correctly, but when it builds up, it will have an opacity and it'll look white. So when you polish your guitar with a wax, you don't want to get up around the edge of the bridge, the corners of the fretboard, any blind corner that you can't get in and wipe away, the wax will build up. And when it dries, it'll leave a white line. You've probably seen this before. And it's unsightly, it's aggravating. And in your attempts to get it away, you might damage your finish. That's a whole other subject on how to deal with that. So there's two caveats that are important in your insert polish. Again, the wax is to protect it, not to take out scratches. But the wax will have a mildly solvent action. So it will solve, like, again, a wine spill or things like that, where you can, it'll solve it, you can wipe it away. And anything you're using to apply or polish this, you want to be absolutely scratch free. And a nice cloth, a polishing cloth for guitars are usually perfect for that. But beware, sometimes they're silicone treated to give you this artificial appearance of super shine. And that's not going to do your guitar any good. So, Richard, I'm going to pause here and make sure I'm on track with what you want for all this, because when you ask a question about guitars, I tend to think you want everything.
Well, I think that we're completely on track. You brought up the protective quality sometimes of it, and you said the word drool, and I immediately go to thinking about.
Well, we do get excited,
Yeah, we do, and I know my VS sitting on the wall here is in the I don't want to say the blast zone, but it is in the blast zone for when my Great Dane goes out back and gets a drink of water, and then comes through my office and shakes her head, and sometimes you can see that drool.
Slaughter factory.
Yeah, that drool hits pretty bad in there, and you really want to make sure it is protected from that. But also, I think your point is
we have a formulation that takes Great Danes into consideration.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. But I think you're absolutely right on track with the warning of the silicone and things like that. It's an ugly product, and there's serious damage that can. I mean, so what are you going to do then? Get a silicone remover and start rubbing that on a 3,000-year-old Adirondack top? Go ahead. I not me.
Yeah. We have progressive failure. Well, I will, I can't continue on here because there's a lot more in the, the care and feeding of your guitar and what you use. I just wanted to do a reality check and make sure I wasn't straying from your focus today.
Absolutely. Right on.
Well, and with a new guitar.
Okay. I take that as an okay to continue on here. When we're cleaning up our guitar, like I said, the wax is protective, and anything abrasive is by nature is going to remove finish, and you want to be cautious with this. If you go into the auto parts store and get auto polish, goes all the way to rubbing compound, which is really where you're removing material to get beyond a scratch, and that gets pretty sketchy, especially if you're not versed in this. The finish on your guitar could be anywhere from, let's say 4 to 7 mil on a Santa Cruz guitar. That's thousandths of an inch. That's not very much. And removing, 20% of that gives you a lot less protection in the future. So don't go for unknown products again, or like an auto rubbing compound or those kind of things, because you're going to shorten the life of your finish. What you want is something that's, I should pause here, If you're trying to move super minor scratches, let's talk about like a dry fingernails, brush against a linen fabric or something like that, that creates little tiny scratches. Then there are products that will take care of that. And if you can rub that a little bit, take a dry cloth over it, and it goes away, you're fine. But if you're really having to bear down, the scratch may be too deep for you to actually take care of yourself. It needs to go to a pro. And here's one way you could do that. You can look at it, or you could, a lot of phones today have an app where you can magnify it and look at something. And you can look at a scratch and you can tell if it's dented the finish, if you have somewhat of a blunt medium that moves across the finish, it'll make a little trough, but it'll be rounded and you can see that. If it has fractures in it, little opacity where it turns white, or heaven forbid, it's gone to the wood, you'll be able to determine that. And that's not something you can polish out. Give me a call. I'll give you the remedies and we'll help if we can. So back to this, if your scratches are somewhat superficial, as I described, a product that works really, really well is Virtuoso. And you can spell that yourself. Virtuoso. And there's two products. I do this if we were in conversation, but not for posterity. There's two versions of it. One is a cleaner and one is a polish. And the difference is the cleaner is mildly abrasive and it will take care of superficial scratches, right? And again, same caveat, don't get it up into the corners around the fingerboard, the bridge, around the gear posts and things like that. But follow instructions. You with the polish, you can immediately go to work with it, and you rub it on, and then you take a clean cloth and wipe it off. Remember, your cleaner will contaminate the rag, which will contaminate your polish. So use two different cloths to do this. You'll use the cleaner to your satisfaction, and then you would follow up with the polish, which is like the wax. It's protective for the future. And Virtuoso makes both of those. They're designed for really with vintage instruments in mind. And I always default to what I'm going to call archival products. My research starts with what do museums use for the restoration of antique objects of art, musical instruments, whatever, that just cannot be compromised. And cost isn't the object here. Effectiveness, just like our guitars. So we're going to the pros to learn how to formulate and get these products to use. So the fundamentals here is with Virtuoso polish, cleaner, you can take care of all your superficial scratches and so forth. Then you follow up with a polish as instructed. You apply that with a clean cloth and you wait for it to flash off or become matte looking, not shiny. And then you proceed with your cloth to wipe it off with judicious pressure. And it'll be really dramatic. It'll look great. You'll be really, really happy with the results. So there's the fundamentals and the foundations of this. If somebody wants to know if a certain other product is adequate, I really can't tell you because I don't have the bandwidth to research things that I don't think might work, right? When I have an alternative that will. So there you go. We don't make a cleaner for the simple reason that it's not, you don't need us for that. Virtuoso does a really fine job of making a cleaner. And this comes to a point that I think is important. Ethically, I think it's pretty crummy to take a product that exists, rebrand it with your name, sell it for more when somebody could go into the store and buy it for less under a different name. So Virtuoso does make a fine polish. I feel that we've taken it a step further in ours, in our wax, and unfortunately you can't get it right now. So that's why the recommendation for the Virtuoso. I better get some oxygen. What do you think now?
Well, It all makes sense to me. I mean,
What I would say, what I've always believed, or what I've always done, is always start with a clean cotton T-shirt. One of those
That's a good one.
ones.
Yeah.
One of those ones your partner is about to throw out just because there's 6 or 8 holes in it or something, even though you still remember the concert. And that with a
Wash
little.
it. Yeah. Wash it first.
Yeah, and that with a little water, and just try cleaning with that. And then if I need to go a step beyond that, I might add the tiniest bit of soap, just so that you have something that'll cut any grease or oil that might be there. Both said with the
I concur.
caveat, yeah, but with the caveat that the finish has to be intact. If there are checks and
That's
cracks in the finish, you have to be really careful. And that's the one thing I've seen too often. People who have old guitars that have a lot of checking or spider webbing in the finish, and they wipe them down with an oil, thinking that's going
Oh,
to
nice. That
feed
goes away
the
for
guitar.
3 seconds.
Well, and it soaks into the cracks and then gets into the wood, and it can really screw things up.
That's really good, Tad. And I absolutely concur. And thank you. I forgot to start at the very beginning. Before you use a commercial product on this, the super soft, scratch-free cloth, a little warm water, and if necessary, a tiny bit of detergent like Dawn is a recommendation, because that's what we use to degrease ducks and the waterfowl that wash up on the beach from oil spills. So it's safe for them. It'll be safe for your guitar, with the caveats that you came up with. That's beautiful. And it's not, again, our compulsion is to spend money on our guitar because we think it appreciates it, right? And sometimes it's not necessary.
mine really likes those little squeaky toys.
Good. I need your audio just a little bit, Tad.
Oh, okay. I said mine really likes
Those little squeaky toys.
Oh yeah, whatever it takes. That is the key behind. I'm you can edit this out if it's too much, but anecdote about Bill Schultz, rest his soul, who was the boss of Fender guitars, and they hired him out of the industry to write Fender in their days when it was a little rough there, and he had the brilliant idea to say, here's my request for compensation, but if you could do this, my wife needs something to do. Let me use the Fender name to put it on, like key fobs and coffee mugs, okay? And give me that business, and I'll be okay. And of course, he turned that into a glorious empire. It's like having Harley Davidson or Levi's brand on something. And he did really, really well with that. So knowing that people love to buy treats for their guitar, and it doesn't matter what it is, bar stool, a wax, whatever. So caveat emptor.
Well, you just gave me the idea of Ted and I were talking a little bit. He had seen a couple pieces of the tree that he bought for $20 at a show. Why isn't there a tree stool?
Oh wow! Oh, you bought little pieces of tree mahogany?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it's probably big enough for
Ukulele back, maybe a single O, but no sides, and they're not matched. But hey, it's still the tree, and there's still beautiful wood.
Thank you. I've collected the sound holes from the ancient spruce, and we do have tree cutoffs, and we do get tree that's just not big enough for that. So my mind is racing, and again, I'm always trying to make sure that I'm approaching this according to my and Santa Cruz values, that we're not gaming anybody. But there's something very cool and sexy in having a piece of natural wonder like that. Okay, I'll get to work.
I'm gonna try to show this. This is what happens when a Great Dane takes your sound hole cutout.
Oh, that's what that is.
And you walk in the room and you find it in 80 million pieces.
Yum, yum.
And yet I've still saved it because it's a cool piece of wood,
that is so nice with Great Dane drool on it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, DNA embedded in the teeth marks,
Yeah,
as she was chewing it up.
great. Well, one of the most fruitful yields of hits on Facebook for us was the picture of Lulu with a guitar top in her mouth. She's
Yeah,
carrying it across the room, and people found all sorts of joy in that.
yeah.
And
Tap, tap.
behind her was a bucket of bones. We used to buy our bones at the butcher shop and give her a bone to keep her quiet. It was like Teletubbies for the dog. And over the years, we filled up a big wooden bucket, and that's in the background, and that really got people going.
Yeah, it's we love our pets. Probably
We do.
probably as much as we love our instruments, but
All relevant. Yeah, that's all relevant. Pay close attention to this.
Tad, do we need to pick his brain anymore? Or I think that we've got a pretty clear description here, and again, the reason that I put a fire under this, Richard, and I'm really sorry, but when I was a kid, we all had these little chemistry sets, these fold out.
Oh yeah.
These fold out 3-thing chemistry sets, and a friend of mine.
Oh yeah.
We took it into his basement and literally blew his house up. Fortunately, no one was really maimed, but the kid was legendary in 4th grade, because he had literally blown his house up.
That secured his cred for life. He blew his house up.
Completely. And I started to see people going down some rabbit holes on the forum, and went, no, we don't need any.
Of course.
Any houses blown up,
Of course. Yeah, the next best thing to buying a toy for your guitar is discovering something that nobody else knows. And you're right, people are in dangerous territory in that regard.
Can get there quick.
In fact, this was a bit of a embryonic thought for me, and this question really brought it to the fore. And what I'm going to say, this doesn't come from hubris. It comes from a real desire to serve our customers. Is we've developed this expertise over almost 50 years now, and we know how to do things right for your guitars and how to do things wrong. And whereas I kind of balked before at logo products and swag and so forth, we're doing a real service to people if we offer them something that's assured to be the right product for the guitar, as long as we're not rebranding, as I said. And so I'm taking this wax thing seriously, and I'll get back to that formulation. We'll come down to your neighborhood for the Concours d'Elegance and pinch some of those people selling, restored cars products for, like what we had as our formulation for wax. There was a similar product on the market that was $90 an ounce in $1990 that they sold at the Concours d'Elegance to polish, because those multi-million-dollar restorations many times their cars are finished with nitrocellulose because it has the stuff. It's sexy, it looks really expensive, and they want to take care of it, and they can't use just off-the-shelf products for that. So I'll get back on that and make sure that we have something available. And people can look forward to other things that are good for their guitar as well, that are true added value. So there's my doing my job promoting our swag.
Richard made reference to the Concours d'Elegance, and what it is it happens here in Pebble Beach every August. And one year I was fortunate enough to photograph the winning car, and I had to wear a tie and a jacket, and I was given 5 polishers. And when the car won, they wheeled it onto the 18th green, and these 5 guys went in there and polished this thing. They had 10 minutes to do it. I had 5 minutes to shoot it.
And they were specialty for different parts of the guitar.
Exactly. And they were like so focused. This guy did the wheels. This guy did this. This guy did this, and it was pure ballet to watch.
Wow. Yeah.
It's just so. If we think that we're treating our guitars well, unless you got 5 roadies, Shining it up for you, you
that's
know.
that's beautiful. I love that story. Richard, can I take a liberty here? I want to give you guys an anecdote that I think's relevant, and maybe you can use it for another podcast or something. But with your permission, I'll go into it. Okay?
Please do.
Agreed. You don't know what it is, but here you
Agreed.
go.
I don't have
Um,
any idea, but I'm on
Well,
on the pony.
you watch these guys jump on, polish this guitar to perfection in 10 minutes. And they weren't born that way. It came from practice. And really what we are offering people, what we sell is our time and expertise from practice. And I had a real revelation at 33 years old. I was playing baseball. I played like 3 teams a year. I was playing baseball, and we performed a triple play, which was really unusual. And it went like a ballet. It went so quickly. Everybody had to stop and figure out what just happened. And I had this revelation that worked because we'd done this fundamental so many times that we knew without thinking what to do next, and it went beautifully and fluidly, and it happened. And this is how silly my thinking was. I went, oh, if you do something over and over again, you can get really good at it. And that's what they mean by practice. And it was a revelation. And as simple as that sounds, I was the young man that thought I was so smart that practice was for people that didn't quite get it as quick as me, right? That I get it out by figuring it out. And coming to realize that nature of practice, I started looking for it elsewhere. I could cut a 17-inch straight line on the side of the fingerboard and only vary a couple of thousandths of an inch. That's almost inhuman. But I couldn't tell you if a 2x4 was 12 feet long or 8 feet long, right? Because I didn't have that reference. So this practice issue is what we buy from someone else. And I was sitting at lunch with my sweetheart, and I was watching out the window, and a truck pulled up. A guy got out with a shovel and some stuff, and he patched a hole in the road, and he got back to his truck and drove away. But his economy of motion, the fluidity, was beautiful to watch. You can see the same thing in a mother handling her third baby, after time. And I can't tell you how much I respect now how people develop the expertise through practice. And I realize that's part of the service that we give to people when we build a guitar.
They really are buying your experience. The big art story exactly in that same caveat is Ansel making Moonrise Hernandez. And
God, I have that in my house.
He was driving down the road. He saw it happen. He ditched the car. It was 4:30 at night. The sun was almost down. He ditched the car. He could not find an exposure meter in the car. And he looked at the scene, and he'd done it so many times. He said, set it for this and go with it. And
that's awesome.
And you have that example, and it's the worst looking negative you've ever seen. I've held it. I've gotten to print it. It's an 8x10 neg, and it's the worst looking thing you've ever seen. There are something like 45 different modifications to make that the image that you see. He does 45 different things when he was making that picture.
Wow. That's perfect analogy.
But it's perfect for exactly what you're saying, because here is this absolutely beautiful, wonderful thing that is like a guitar is known around the world. And it's happened. Haunted. Yeah, it happened because he was prepared, and he was practiced, and he was ready.
Oh, that's good. And he had Seema Weatherwax, who was a master in the darkroom that worked with his stuff, who was a personal friend of Beth's. That is a lovely legacy. We'll have to have some beer talk about that.
Yeah.
And Adam and capturing light. Moonrise over Hernandez is so haunting, and inspirational.
It's
Thanks for that.
it's
Nice reminder.
such a beautiful thing to look at. Tad, do we need his brain anymore, or are we going to let him go and have a Saturday?
I was hoping before we left this topic that we might talk a little bit
About some other care and maintenance issues on the guitar. I mean,
Sure.
the fretboard and the bridge are not finished. So maybe we should real quickly talk about how you would recommend taking care of those. And also something that comes up from time to time is lubricating the tuning machines. These are the kinds of things that we might as well cover, because when people are polishing their guitar and waxing it and polishing it out, they're usually doing the whole kit and caboodle. Let's make sure they do all of it right.
I'm going to try to capture those questions you just asked. Maybe you could help me with that. So we were talking about tuner lube,
Right.
of unfinished fingerboard oiling. Okay, I'll get those and help me remember anything else you have there.
Because I mean, there are some products that they sell and promote for fingerboards that I don't think should be anywhere near a guitar.
Oh, they could have silicone in them, remember?
Yeah.
Remember. So let's address the fingerboard issue. A lot of folklore on that. And some of it's existed forever. The stuff that I read and heard pre-internet in like 1967 when I got my first guitar is still perpetuated today. And some of it is like hooey, some of it's marketing, whatever. But let's just go to the facts here. Yes, the fingerboard is unfinished and it's hydroscopic. It'll take on and lose moisture. If it loses too much moisture, it'll crack. And if it gets too much, the frets could come loose, whatever. But we don't take our guitars swimming, but we don't take our Santa Cruzes to the beach. Pretty much we avoid those extremes. And a lot of this folklore comes from back in the day where people were really unsophisticated about their instruments. I bought my Harmony H150 for $47.50, which is a fortune to me back then. But I just assumed it was indestructible. I could take it camping, I could take it to the beach, I could do whatever I wanted with it. And this is where some of these caveats come up with about protecting your guitar, because people were not super cautious. So the fingerboard as an unfinished surface, we treat it when we build the guitar. It's sanded to a really fine grit to make it look really nice. And then we use a product to kind of seal it from moisture. But it's not a finish. It's something that actually is absorbed into the wood. And this, we've used pure linseed oil in the past, which is tricky because it can go rancid and so forth. We've used Dr. Duck's Axe Wax, which worked fine for us. And then we've used Stuart McDonald's formulation for fingerboard and bridge feeding. And that's great. Stuart McDonald has a great reputation for caring about us and our guitars, and they do a good job. We don't make that ourselves because we didn't find a need for it. If I can in the future find a better way to do it, you can bet we will. But what that is it's a really judicious application. And what you'd want to do first is you'd want to clean your fretboard. And we could use just what we talked about with guitar. You could use a soft cloth maybe to get most of the stuff. But you see on older guitars where you get these little snowdrifts of unspeakable gunk, up against the frets. And that takes a little doing. Now the fretboard is built with the grain running north and south and a little woodworking primer. When you sand or polish anything, you go in the same direction as the grain. Otherwise, you'll make scratches that are really hard to get out. So if you were to use anything more than a soft cloth to clean that up, let's say, for instance, 4/0 steel wool, 0000, which you can buy in the store. You could use that with the grain to get some of that gunk off. Since you're going perpendicular to the frets, it's hard because that stuff is up against the fret. but you could take something like a Q-tip, work each side of the fret to get that stuff off. Now, caveat, steel wool is made out of steel and it will defoliate little tiny corkscrews, and those can get in your eyes. They can also attach to electromagnetic pickups. So you got to be careful with it, where that stuff goes, and really clean with it. But once you've cleaned that fretboard, then you would apply the oil. And you don't squirt it on the board. You put a few drops on the cloth and you work a section of the board at a time. So I'm going to say the total 17 or 18 inches of the fingerboard, you could probably do with maybe 6 to 8 drops of a product. You don't need more than that. And you wipe it on the, you gently wipe it on the board. It'll look wet. You let it flash or dry, and then you polish it off. And again, it's best to go with the grain of the fretboard to do that. That'll give you a really nice look. It'll feed the wood, but what it won't do is it won't put so much oil in that you start to compromise the integrity of the seating of the fret. The fret's held in with kind of a wedging keyed action into the wood. And you can imagine if you made that wood oily or gushy, you're going to have problems with your frets. And how often do you need to do that? Twice a year? Twice a year, maybe too much. What you're doing is you're keeping it from building up gunk on it, and you're cleaning it up and just and making it nicer. You're not going to have your frets fall out if you never do that, right? Many, I see guitars that are 70, 80 years old that have never had any work done on them at all. The frets don't come out because you didn't oil it, right? The frets come out from excessive dryness. So the bridge is the same way. When you change your strings, and to counteract some internet folklore, there's no problem in taking all the strings off your guitar for a really short period of time. I wouldn't, because if you have an adjustable truss rod, it's set against the pull of the strings. You take the strings off, it's going to keep pulling, and the strings back on, it may have over straightened or bowed your neck. So it's good to, when you change strings, again, to do them one at a time. But to get to the bridge and get the bridge pins out, let's say, again, twice a year maximum, you would do the same thing. The bridge is not going to collect a lot of grime. So usually a soft cloth will get most stuff off of it. And then you can go with like a couple of drops of oil. It's good not to get that onto the finish. It won't really damage the finish. It's just hard to get off because it spreads out and it'll leave a shiny spot around your bridge. So polish that off and you're good. And those are the bare wood surfaces of the guitar. I've never heard anybody polishing their bridge pins, wooden bridge pins or end pin, because usually those have some kind of finish on them anyway to do that. So that would cover your wood part of it. The gears are contextual. All gears don't need lubrication. Some of them are lubricated. Closed back gear like a Schaller M6A or a Goto, they're sealed. They're sealed bearings. There's stuff in there. There's no reason for you to pry the gear apart. The old Cruz and Stay Tights, you might remember, had a little tiny hole in there, but they were also packed with grease, and trying to get oil in there wasn't possible. If the gears are like 50 years old, yeah, it might be time to do that. But open back gears, it's a delicate process. If you were going to lubricate those, what it would be is not a 3-in-1 that oil that you can go, knock, and squirt onto it. It would be something you would put onto a Q-tip and then apply to the worm drive of the gear, and without the strings on, and turn it to get it in there. So it's very, very little stuff. Things like Tri-Flow or silicone silicone base, don't use those. WD-40 is funny. It's WD stands for water displacement. It's a way to get stuff ready to oil rather than a lubricant in itself. Those products aren't good for that. Singer sewing machine oil has always been a real favorite for purity in fine machinery and stuff like that. And again, Q-tip, a dab on your open back gear, and you'll feel really good. Those gears are designed pretty much to run a lifetime without trouble, but judiciously you could oil them. Not once a month, probably not twice a year, and not after they start to squeak and grind, but somewhere in between there. And I realize that sounds a little ambiguous, but it is, because I don't know how often you go back and forth with your tuning machines, open tuning and things like that. The more you do, then the more you should consider lubrication. If you don't, it's not the end of the world. Like care and maintenance, we talked about the finish, we talked about the machines, the bare wood. Getting into humidity, temperature control is another big subject, and I would really advise anybody to access our website, www.santacruzguitar.com, and read the care and feeding on humidity control, temperature control, and how to look after your guitar in that regard. We will be coming up with a product soon that's finally gotten to the place we can recommend it. And it's a way to control humidity within the case of your guitar. Everybody knows the folklore of putting a soap dish with a sponge in it, with water, with holes or whatever. That's not enough. That's not enough usually in really dry climates. And there's a lot of commercial products that do it. But what we've been working on for like a decade and a half is a medium that was developed for museum objects of art to control the humidity. And it both exudes moisture and it captures it. It's almost too good to be true. And it's designed to keep it around 55%, let's say. And so it's a product you can put in your case that will keep the humidity stabilized within reason. And we'll be packaging that and including that in our stuff soon. So anyway, that's a large go on. Can you think of anything yourself, you guys as players, that you would wonder about for maintenance of your guitar?
No, I think you covered it now. I mean,
I just thought it was good to go over the whole instrument, since that's kind of what we're doing here. And that covers it nicely. I mean, I think we need to make sure to recommend people, if they don't have a Santa Cruz guitar, that they should check into what the care and feeding of whatever finish might be on their guitar, because it could be different.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a Santa Cruz guitar, obviously, listen to Richard.
I did think of something that's really, really a helpful suggestion. Of course, we get a lot of guitars sent back to us for service, and almost no warranty stuff. It's almost always wear items like tires on a car. The nut can wear, the frets can wear, the saddle can wear, and we do replacements and setups and Plex service for people to get their guitar tip-top shape. And when they ship it, we always emphasize, go into your little boot in your case, your little compartment, and take out the keys, the spare screws, the ephemera that you have in there, because it has an uncanny way of working out of that pocket and dancing around on your guitar and shipping. No matter how secure that seems, if you have to ship your guitar, transport it on an airplane or whatever, clear that out and put that invaluable ephemera someplace else.
and the battery.
Oh, thank you. That's right. Battery can do remarkable damage. You think you'd had a bowling ball in there
Yeah.
with teeth.
Yeah.
Yeah, two teeth,
Yeah.
two round teeth. Yeah, ugly. Thank you, Richard.
Yes.
Yeah, most fun and most informative, and a great way to spend a Saturday. And we'll post this tomorrow for to try and keep the fires low. out
Well,
there.
I think that's beautiful, and I'm glad to be of service. And I'm sorry I said this, but uh, I do an imitation of a busy guy I've heard, but what I'm really doing is I'm killing time in between the opportunities to talk about guitars. So emailing me or giving me a call, I would love to be of service, and I love talking about instruments. And again, I always give this caveat: I'm not going to burden you with opinions. You can go on the forums. That's the place for opinions. I'll give you the physics, the products of experimentation, and the best information I can.
Yeah, there's some fun stuff that I'm going to present to you pretty soon. I just saw a amazing article about being able to control the pH and moisture in wood. That they're coming out with a new. It was a Scientific American thing, and it was way deep down the rabbit hole. But
That's great.
yeah, some really interesting stuff, and I know that you'll have some stuff to tell us next time we talk.
We will. Let me give you a tease here. Our scientific inquiry into wood, how it works, the inherent qualities of tone in a particular piece, and how to manipulate that has come a really long ways in the last year. And we've been at this for 20 years. And it is some potential to change the way that the industry works with wood instruments. And to a large degree, that will become open source, because I strongly believe in that. I also believe in simultaneous discovery, and I know there's a lot of things in taking parallel courses in amongst other guitar companies. But one of the things that the breakthrough is guitar makers aren't scientists, and scientists don't know what they're looking for. And if we put the two together, we can come up with remarkable breakthroughs. And I know that is a little short of fact, but we'll get into that soon, and we're going to have a lot of fun with that.
Great. Can't wait.
Yeah, as always, it's wonderful to talk to you, Richard. Thank you so much for your time. And we'll really look forward to that next time we get to talk to you.
Oh, dang. Now I have to go imitate being busy till we talk again.
Well, that's okay. Go play with the dog.
Thanks, brothers. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Always. See you.
Happy springtime.
You
Take
too.
care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.